Now that I've had some time to battle in the open field with Liu Che, it's time to update my video guidance about what is the very best open field pairings that you can possibly use, whether you're using 5 marches, 6 marches, or go all the way up to 7 open field marches. But before I begin, allow me to thank the sponsor of today's video, that is Vikingard. Welcome to Vikingard, a Viking and Nordic mythology themed simulation role-playing game. In this game, you'll manage and develop your Viking tribe, recruit powerful and rare heroes to your ranks to fight on your behalf, and collect lost artifacts that strengthen your combat power. As you explore the 9 realms of mythology, you'll face legendary monsters such as dragons, krakens, fenrirs, and more. But don't worry, adventurer, you're not alone. You'll form strong alliances with other players and fight for glory in the weekly Alliance Clash. And when you're not fighting, you'll be building up your fleet of warships. You'll farm, mine, collect pets, and explore the rich world of Vikingard. If you want to download the game, check out that link in the description and you can start playing for free right away. You won't want to miss out, by the way, on the Halloween-themed events that are right around the corner, where you can get Halloween-themed pets like the Pumpkin Kitten and the Pumpkin Warrior. There's even formidable vampire lords to challenge, and you can look forward to even more events coming for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So what are you waiting for? Download today and start your journey in Vikingard. We're going to start this video by going right into the very best open field pairings. We're going to start with 1 pairing of each troop type, then we'll advance all the way up to the 7 pairings, and at the end of this video, I'm even going to give you the talent builds that I think are the very best on each of these commanders that should be the primary commander. So consider subscribing if you haven't already, smash like on the video, and let's get this going. Up first, we're going to do 1 infantry, archer, and cavalry march. This, by the way, means I think these are the very best marches in the game, and I think every player should be working on a diversity of these for a number of reasons, and I want to cover this very briefly because this is important. First of all, when you get armaments, they're going to be random, and so sometimes you get infantry, sometimes you get archers, sometimes you get cavalry. So you can make 1 best set for each troop type, and it's probably better than if you specialize at the start. In addition, it gives you diversity in terms of how you can change your roster, because dismantling legendary equipment is just prohibitively expensive. So you don't want to ever have to do that. I think having 1 equipment set for each troop type is just such a great way to start the game. So let's get into it. Best archer combo, in my opinion at this point, is still Boudica Prime pair with Zhuge Liang. Now, before anybody gets confused, I'm not actually ranking these marches. I'm just listing the number in terms of the number of marches you bring. So your 1 archer march, if you only have 1, should be Boudica, Zhuge Liang. I do think that if you started the game with Isong, I know that I don't really like this, and I've communicated that, but like, you could invest in Zhuge Liang right away and use Zhuge Liang with Isong. I just think that you're really slow from a march speed standpoint, and this would only ever be a stepping stone until later you move into 2 marches, okay? And Boudica Prime would definitely be a part of that. But in your perfect world, your 1 archer march is Boudica Prime Zhuge Liang. Your 1 cavalry march, this gets a little weird. I think right now it's Nevsky Joan, but you easily could make an argument for doing Huo with Nevsky as well. Either of those is honestly going to be amazing. So you bring your 1 cavalry march, your 1 archer march, and if you're only going to bring 1 infantry march, I think the answer at this point is going to be Skippy Prime with Liu Che. Now, I think that Sargon with Liu Che is probably a slightly better combo, but the reason I'm recommending this is that at this point you're only using 3 marches. We know the power level of Skippy and Liu Che is really pushed. We don't know exactly how long the skill damage meta will continue to be a thing that, like, you know, early in your journey, you're getting to 3 marches if you want to bring, you know, like, is Sargon the invest over Skippy? I don't think that's the answer. So I think this is what you would do if you just wanted 3 marches to start that are just really, really wicked. Now from here, we need to advance to a 5 march grouping. And to do that, I don't think I want to add more infantry. What I want to do is add another archer march and another cavalry march. And we already know what the best cavalry march is, by the way. We know that if we want to bring in another cavalry march, it's going to be Huo with William. This double configuration, the Nevsky Joan, Huo, William, has been crushing it. And it's been doing that for a really long time. So we know that if you're going to bring 2 cavalry marches, that's the very best you could do. Now, there are definitely ways that you can mix this up. For example, we could take Minamoto here, move him all the way up. And like, if you didn't want to invest in William right now, because, you know, like, who knows how long he'll be meta. He's really good right now, but his damage factor is relatively low these days. You could just go with like Huo and Minamoto, just as an example. Another example of a commander that's just really, really great would be Mehmed. I actually pulled him aside because I knew this is like a thing you could do, right? So if you're still building out your roster, that's an option for what you could do. Now, when it comes to the archer marches, what I would recommend at this point is probably that you split the Boudica and the Zhuge Liang. I think you're splitting them. And you have a couple options for what you do here. One option is that you're going to go and you're going to take Artemisia or Isong to pair with your Boudica. And you're going to use either Nebu for march speed or Henry to pair with your Zhuge Liang. So to be clear, the primary commander on the left is always the same. And any extra commanders to the right of that are like other options for secondary commanders. And all of these options, I think, would be really exceptional for a 5-march murder ball. Very, very, very powerful, actually. So from here, we need to go to 6 marches. And this is when I think, yeah, like bringing in more infantry is where you want to be. And to do that, I think you bring in both Guan and Sargon. Now, you could run them together like this, and I think that would be reasonable. But I think you will get a slightly better result if you instead run it like that. Liu Che with Sargon gets slightly better trades than Sargon primary with Liu Che secondary. And we know that Guan Skippy just have amazing synergy. Skippy does shielding. That shielding gives Guan extra skill damage. Skippy also gives extra rage when your target's silenced. When you have them in a march together, I mean, it's kind of guaranteed that what you're targeting will have nice synergy there. So I think this would be my 6-march murder ball in a perfect world if I were building toward one. Now, I'm not currently. In fact, on my restart account, I've got kind of a weird situation where I already have Trajan. Now, a number of teams are still using Trajan and Ethel, even in Ark of Osiris League. And I just want to call attention to just how meaningful that is. However, I think if you're using 7 marches, Trajan is probably still a good choice. I think there are other choices, and we'll talk about that, but it is still a good choice. If you're going to do that, my recommendation would be to bench Ethel these days, to bring in Skippy Prime with the Trajan, then take Honda and move it up with the Guan. That's how I would run my 7-march burner ball on my main account if I were in KVK fighting tomorrow. And actually, it's all the commanders to the right that I would just carve off because, I mean, look, I actually would run it like this. In part because I don't have Henry maxed. But also, I will say that Zhuge Liang with Nebu got some of the most insane trades in my last KVK. It was really crazy. If that does not get targeted, you shred. Oh my God, the AoE's nuts. So, a lot of people these days are on the no-go Trajan plan. They are not interested in seeing Trajan. And if you're not going to use Trajan, I would put Skippy back with Guan, and I would understand. I'd be like, hey, I get it. I get why you don't want to use Trajan. I think what you want to do, if you are not going to run a Trajan march, is that I think you want to make 3 archer marches in a perfect world. And if I were to make 3 archer marches, we're definitely bringing in Henry and Isong. In fact, as I look at this, I would just pair them together. And that's really easy. This gives us even more open field punch. And I really like those combos together, balancing march speed and damage. Alternatively, if what you wanted to do was to run another cavalry march, how would I go about doing that? Well, we're going to bring XY into the mix. And at this point, I think what you would do is either Minamoto or Honda Tadakatsu. And you'd run it like that. We know that Huo with William is crazy. We know that Nevsky and Joan is crazy. I wouldn't break it up. I just say, hey, let's take XY, pair with either the Minamoto, if that's what you've got, or the Honda. I think that will work really, really well. So that gives you two options there for how you can run that 7 march combo if you're not running a Trajan. Would I recommend 3 infantry marches without a Trajan? No. I'm not even going to map it out because I really don't think that's worth doing. That is how strongly I feel that way. And I will add that there is one other thing to consider, which is Gorgo. Now, I didn't mention her, but it could be that Gorgo is really good in the open field. And if Gorgo is really good in the open field, then like having more infantry starts to be an option that is more exciting. But if she is really, really powerful, then what that means is probably Guan gets benched. It would be Liu Che secondary, Gorgo primary, and then you probably use Sargon primary with Skippy secondary. You could very easily justify flipping that around. But that, I think, would be the way I would set this up for a 7 march murder ball with 2 infantry marches. If it turns out that Queen Gorgo is actually just nuts in the open field and that's what people want to be using her for, I think it is likely it's a great combo. But also, like, if you're going for Gorgo, you're probably running a garrison build on her anyways, because you're planning to garrison, not field with her. So it just gets a little bit weird to, like, use her in the field. I mean, I guess you could, run the combo the opposite direction. But remember, Gorgo has an active skill rage requirement of 900 instead of 1,000. So putting her as the secondary shreds the 100 rage cost reduction on your active skill because she has to be the primary to take advantage of that. Which is not good that you would lose out on that. So if Gorgo turns out to be amazing, subscribe if you haven't already, because I will make a video covering that. As soon as she's in the game, we'll do the open field testing for her. Then this is what it's going to be, in my opinion, for the open field. And again, I would say archers are preferable to cavalry. I just think when you compare the power level of like XY with, Minamoto to the power level of Henry with Isong, I think it's a different tier entirely to go with this. Boom. There you have it. Now, if you're wondering, what talents do I use? Let me jump back in game, and I'll show you what I'd recommend. For Liu Che, I used this talent build with March Speed and March Speed Manipulation. It's powerful because it increases your all damage and also your normal attack damage, which, by the way, enhances his smite damage. Love this build, working very, very well for me so far. Up next is Guan Yu for the open field. There once was a time where everyone was terrified of the talent feral nature, but it turns out it's really good. And this is the build that I'm using in the open field on Guan. I'm getting very strong reports. 10 out of 10. Can recommend this build. 2 points into the march speed, and you will be a little bit slower compared to other Guan Yu talent options. From here, we've got Nevsky. What a beast. This is your slam dunk cavalry build for Nevsky. This is also, in my opinion, a slam dunk cavalry build for Huo. People have been making an argument for an alternate build, that you could instead go for a cavalry build because of the way that he leaves combat periodically. I think it's far simpler and just very punchy to stick with the skill build and to go with the extra rage. It's just very, very powerful as an effect. Which brings us to the archers. For the archers, these days I'm all in on the rage plan still. In the open field, going a turn sooner is a big deal. Sometimes the enemy runs away, sometimes you need to run away. So firing off your skills is a massive damage boost compared to when you wouldn't have fired off your big active skill damage. So we go with this build on the Boudica Prime, going for Venomous Sting, couple points into Razor Sharp, and then Full Quiver gets 1 point as well. You could flip that around if you want decreased normal attack damage, and I actually see big justification for flipping this to have only 1 point in the normal attack damage because, look, attack increases your normal attack, counter attack, and your skill damage, which is pretty nice. So I actually might justify switching that around a little bit. From here, if we're doing additional archers, we've got Zhuge Liang. Now, Zhuge Liang has basically the same build. And you can see I made that flip that I was just talking about, where I put 3 points into Full Quiver and only 1 point into Rapid Fire. I guess technically, if you wanted, you could get another 0.5% of stats over here for 1 point, but Compared to 0.5% of stats versus, 0.5% of normal attack, I went with the normal attack. I don't really know which is exactly right. It's probably extremely minor one way or the other. So the Zhuge build, this has been great for me, using it in Canyon. Not as much in the open field because this account's using Boudica, but when I have used Zhuge as a primary with Nebu in the open field, that was the build that I was using. And for those of you out there that are, in fact, using a Skippy primary, this is the support tree you want to go for. The key to this build is that you only need 2 points in Rejuvenate. Otherwise, you will hit the maximum amount of rage per turn and exceed it, which offers you literally no value. So 2 points into Rejuvenate gets the job done. This build has served me well. We've covered the Guan Yu build already. The Sargon build and the Guan build are the same if you're using Sargon as the primary. Trajan build, while we're on the topic of support builds, would look like this. I've gone for the Cage of Thorns March speed reduction because I have often paired with Ethelfled. I'm not doing that in this KVK, so you could make a justification for carving off these 3 points and putting them somewhere else, and that's actually super reasonable. I might take a look at that. Come to think of it, I might take a look at that just to get a few more stat points here, because the extra point over here does nothing. The slow over here for 2 points. I mean, I don't know. I should either move all in on it and take these 3 points and put them in here, or I should just get out of this entirely. This build is maybe makes some sense for Canyon, but maybe not even for Canyon, honestly. So I might be looking at this to make that one adjustment of either moving all in on the March speed reduction or getting out of the March speed reduction entirely. If you're using Henry as the primary, well, to show you that, I have actually got to flip around to find a support archer. I think this is the build you would use if you run Henry in the open field. 2 points into Rejuvenate, 3 points into Emergency Protection, and then you just zip right up to the top of the archer tree, whistling arrows. I think that's the way I would run a Henry talent build. And that covers the combos and talents that I think are the very best for the open field as of the entry of Liu Chat into the meta. If you enjoyed this vid, do me a favor of throwing a like on here and subscribing to the channel. Big shout out again to the sponsor of today's video, Viking Guard. Check out the link in the description to go and download the game. Using that link does directly support the channel, so thank you so much for your support. I do really appreciate it. And if you're looking for more guidance on the meta for Rise of Kingdoms, I'll have cards in the end screen in just a second for the best commanders to invest in, and a little bit of guidance about Liu Chat.